What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the Rockstead Chi. Not really just talking about the Chi, but the brand of Rockstead in general. I feel like there's a lot of kind of mystery around them and lore, if you will, and I've gathered some details through my research that I think are really interesting that kind of explain the price point of this knife and like what it's all about. First of all, you'll notice I'm wearing a black mechanics glove. This is what I had. I shot this video already and I watched it back and I just covered the blade in smudges because, as you can see, this knife has a crazy mirror polish in this, and I touch the blade during my reviews, as you've probably noticed, quite frequently. So I'm just wearing this black glove to try to lessen the smudges so it's a little bit nicer to look at. So before we get into kind of the details of this knife, because it's all in the details in this particular knife and in Rockstead in general, let's just get the general specs out of the way. So first of all, this is a Rockstead Chi. Like I said, it comes in ZDP 189, which is a really sweet tool steel that we will get into later. It's got an aluminum alloy handle. It's not just aluminum, but a mix of other things too that makes it more durable. It has a 3¼ inch blade, which I will show you. 3¼ inches from the tip to the handle. If it will focus, maybe it won't. And a 3-inch cutting edge, as well as the blade shape, which is a Japanese tanto, which basically means it's got a less aggressive jump from the main edge to the secondary edge, and the secondary edge has a bit of a belly on it that you can kind of see there with the shape. Okay, and then we'll do a couple size comparisons to get those out of the way too. I have a PM2 right here and a PM3. I use these knives because I figure lots of people have these knives, so you can kind of get a general idea of how big this knife is. The Rockstead Chi is definitely closer to the PM3 size, definitely smaller than the PM2. So what are the details of this knife? Well, first off, before we talk about the details of this particular knife, we kind of have to acknowledge one thing that we have all silently agreed on, and that is the fact that the details are what we pay for as knife collectors, right? Our knives, no matter the cost, functionally are about the same as a knife you could buy on Amazon for $40 to $50. Perfect example would be this Rockstead Raccoon. This is an excellent knife. I think these are like $50. I got it in a trade just a few days ago, so it's a great budget knife. Really functional. It has a cutting edge. It has a lock on it that works well. It's got good ergos. The steel is obviously not as premium as the Rockstead, but it functionally is the same as a Rockstead. But you know, that's not why we collect knives. We collect knives for the details, and Rockstead is a master of the details. This knife is made in Japan, and you can tell if you know anything about Japanese manufacturing, it is all about precision. And that kind of is the main piece of the details that I kind of want to talk about with this knife. Everything is done to a level and a precision level that is truly unmatched in the production, with quotes around it, knife world. The first thing we have to talk about is the most obvious thing on the Rockstead, and that is the blade. These blades are all hand sharpened, not even ground. Like they're not. I mean, sharpening is grinding down, but these aren't done on a belt. These are done stoned by an individual. And in order to achieve this mirror polish, it has to be perfect all through the process. If you screw up in one step on one level grit in these, when sharpening a mirror polish like this, you have to start over. So these are all hand sharpened by an individual. I mean, there are multiple individuals that do it, but one individual has a knife, and they bring it up to a really high grit in a traditional sharpening sense, and then they have a proprietary process, I believe, for the incredible polish that they're able to achieve. The next interesting detail that, you know, kind of justifies, quote unquote, justifies the price of these knives is the hardness of these blades. This is what these knives are notorious for. They keep an edge forever. Obviously, you can see that this knife has been quite heavily used. You can see the dings here. You can see the scratches in this finish, etc. I am the third owner, and all three of us have used it. I've used it pretty extensively, the previous tuners as well. This knife still shaves. That is not an exaggeration. It will still shave hair. It also will cut through phone book paper like nothing else. Like truly, it just doesn't. It doesn't even notice that it's there. It just goes through. You can change it any angle. I don't have any phone book paper on the table. I forgot to grab that, but it is remarkably sharp, like scary sharp. And that is achieved by having this crazy hard tool steel blade. Each Rockstead is tested for its specific hardness level. So if you look at this piece of the tang right here, what you'll see is there's a little dimple there. What that is that is a machine that they use on the blade that takes a tiny sample of the metal, and they test the exact hardness level of your blade, and they actually put it on the certificate of authenticity. This specific one is at 66.2 HRC. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that this blade can retain an edge forever. I've already said that a bunch of times, but this is not a new knife. I think this one is from 2021. Yeah, I think 2021, if I remember correctly. I can double check, but and it is still screaming sharp. It is still one of the sharpest knives that I own, and you know, they put a crazy edge on it from the factory because they want to stay sharp. They want you to use it, and this is really hard to sharpen for an individual. So they also offer free sharpening for these knives if you are the original owner. But they will then sharpen your knife if you just ship it to them. Also, if you're not the original owner, so that's pretty sweet. The other detail about this blade that we have to talk about is this fuller and this hole. When I first got this, my first Rockstead, which I have here, I'll show you in a minute, the Heisen, it had this fuller and the hole, and I'd seen them in pictures, and I thought it was just a styling cue from Rockstead. That's actually a functional piece of the knife. The hole is for when they test the knives. There's some sort of machine that had a proprietary like mounting point that allows for them to mount it to this like press, and they test them for the blade for toughness and edge retention, and then they're, you know, ship them out for test after testing them. Then the other piece is this fuller, which is kind of this, you know, cutout in the blade. Well, what does that accomplish? That actually is a resonance relief. The harder something is, the more likely it is to shatter. If you think of a rock that you drop, a rock doesn't bend and isn't malleable. It doesn't go back to the position that it was. It shatters when you drop it from a high enough point, or, you know, put enough pressure on it. Whereas like a softer steel will bend as well. You could add probably this Rockstead Raccoon, you could probably bend the blade a good bit and not get it to shatter. But when you are achieving such hard steels like Rockstead is here, these blades will shatter. So to, you know, negate that, what they did is develop this tiny little fuller here that actually actually acts as a resonance relief, because shattering comes from vibrations through a thing, blah blah blah, right? So this is actually a functional piece of the knife that adds basically some flex to the blade that allows it to be even more durable all around. Now that we've talked about the blade a bit, I want to talk about the handle. So these handles are a technically, you know, aluminum alloy where it's mixed with other things, but they are not like soft aluminum. The toughness on this is quite high. I believe it's almost equal to titanium, so not really a worry from the durability standpoint. The other thing you'll notice here is something that I think is super badass, is these textured bits. So when I first saw that, I thought they were like plasticky or plastic or milled or something. I couldn't tell what it was. What that actually is it is stingray leather. It is legitimately leather taken from a stingray, which I think is just badass and kind of, you know, very on point, like with, feels like Japanese, very Japanese to use something like that. So I think that is incredible. The other thing you'll notice about the handle is that you can see the seam here, but this seam is perfect on this knife. It almost could be integral. I think if this, or it looks like it could be an integral. I think if this knife was newer, I would have a harder time even seeing this seam. You can't feel it. It's perfectly fit together. It's perfect fit and finish. And then you'll see the lockup. This is a liner lock. It is an excellent liner lock. The lockup is super secure. Never had any questions about it. Yeah, it is excellent. The last thing to talk about in the details on this knife that make it excellent is the action. This has an action like no other washer knife I ever handled. This honestly makes like Chris Reeves and Strider and the other famous, washer knives feel like they are a cheap knife. Is the most smooth action out of any knife I've ever felt. It is basically, it's shake shut, but it feels almost drop shut. You can see it just goes right to my thumb. It is extremely smooth. This is a rollout knife if I've ever felt one. If you like rolling out your knife, then you will like this knife. So the one bad thing to talk about these knives is the pocket clip. And it's not really a bad thing. These are really simple, basic pocket clips. It's a stamped bent steel. It's functional. Actually, I really like it in the function form, but when you have a knife at this price point, you kind of expect more. The reasoning behind that actually is that in the Japanese pocket knife market, people don't really carry with pocket clips. They carry in like a leather slip in their pocket. So the steel pocket clip was kind of added after the fact to the Rockstead knives in order to be more appealing in the American market. So those are some of the really neat details about this knife. It really, I'm kind of a Rockstead missionary these days because I love them. I have two. They both have perfect fit and finish. Every little thing is thought out. There's nothing on the knife, minus the pocket clip, that feels pointless. This is my Rockstead Heisen. It has a DLC blade and a different steel, YXR7 I think it's called. A little bit softer, but still very hard steel. And then the milled aluminum scales, etc. This one is also perfect. The action is incredibly smooth. You can hear that beautiful click when closing. Anyways, the details of these knives are like no other, like no other. They are absolutely perfect in every way. It's one of those things where once you handle one, you're kind of in trouble, right? When I first got these, my first Rockstead, I was like, I'll just see what the hype is about. And then you understand the hype. It's kind of a if you know type thing. And they really just are remarkable. I really think that the amount of work that goes into these really, more justifies the price. And the great thing about them is that on the secondary market in the US, you can get them for a lot cheaper than the MSRP, because the MSRP on some of the Rocksteads is upwards of $2,000, and they get pretty crazy. But you can get them in the $400 range if you are patient. Not the really expensive Rocksteads, but the more user type Rocksteads like this one. So they can be found for cheap. I highly recommend that you try. If you are a collector, you owe it to yourself to try a Rockstead, because once you do, you'll understand why they are so loved by the people that have them. It's a pretty small community, I feel, that really loves the Rocksteads and knows them really well, but they are definitely worth the cost. And I absolutely love this knife. Both of these knives. I carry the Chi a lot. It's obviously a user. And I do carry the Heisen. I just carry it less because of the size. I think the Chi is the perfect size for me. Anyways, let me know what details are really important in knives to you, because there are different things that matter more to people. I think that for me, the Rockstead hits all of those details. Smoothness of action, the edge retention, the way it looks, it hits all of those details. But as collectors, we justify details, and I want to know what is the detail that makes you justify your more expensive knives, the ones you really love, over something like a Rockstead Raccoon, right? What makes you make that compromise? I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a fantastic day. We'll catch you next time.